The Stonewall Riots, A New Beginning for the LGBT Community by Eliette, Whittaker, and Kate Berra.
While it was just one of the police raids that occurred in the fight for equality, the Stonewall Riots sparked the gay revolution because those of the LGBT community had had enough of the unfair discrimination because of their sexuality. Stonewall Inn was a welcoming place for homosexuals to be free and comfortable being themselves, but it was soon ruined and raided by brutal policemen, and that was when the LGBT community decided to finally fight back.
This program attempts to explore the problem of homosexuality, to cast light into an area in which the shadows have long been deep.
Throughout history, the LGBT community has fought to be treated equally by the public. People who were homosexual were not always treated like normal people, though. In the 1940s and 1950s, and even into the 1960s, being homosexual was illegal. It was often considered a mental illness, and depending on which state they lived in, many were forced into institutions for treatment. Homosexual people were unable to serve in the military, and if someone was even suspected of being homosexual while in the service, they would often receive a dishonorable discharge. At work, if people were discovered to be homosexual, they would lose their job. These witch hunts were called the Lavender Scare. The FBI often kept files on people suspected of being gay or bisexual or even supporting their cause. Members of the LGBT community during this time were unable to express themselves. They hid their lifestyles to avoid losing their jobs, being shamed by society, and even arrested or harmed.
He says the problem of homosexuality is age-old. In ancient Greece and Rome, this condition was apparently accepted as a way of life. In this country, the opposite is true.
It wasn't uncommon for the gays to go somewhere where they could flaunt their sexuality safely. The Stonewall Inn was a bar in Greenwich Village, which is a gay neighborhood in New York City. It was a welcoming place for homosexuals during the 1960s. It was a place for them to feel comfortable and confident being themselves. It was the center of partying and socialization for those of the LGBT community. It was illegal for gay people to be served alcohol at this time, and even for them to dance together. Because gay bars like the Stonewall Inn were so frowned upon by the public, they were regularly invaded by the police. A typical raid would involve the police coming into the bar unannounced and lining everybody up to check their ID. Those without an ID, in drag, or visibly a homosexual would be arrested.
1969, a typical police raid took an unexpected turn. 8 police officers raided the Stonewall Inn at 1:20 in the morning, but the people in the bar refused to cooperate with the police. After decades of discrimination, they finally resisted, while the police were attempting to arrest people in the bar who did not cooperate. Word spread throughout Greenwich Village about the raid. Onlookers and bystanders saw an opportunity and joined the fight. Hundreds of people began to gather outside the Stonewall Inn, and they quickly outnumbered the police. The people began to get angry about how the police were treating them, and violence broke out. The police retreated into the bar for their own safety. The crowd destroyed street meters, burned cars, and broke windows. The Stonewall Inn was destroyed during the riot. Eventually, more policemen arrived and order was restored. The LGBT community was not satisfied, though, as for the next 5 days and 5 nights, people gathered around the Stonewall Inn to protest their treatment at the hands of the police and their society. Over a short period of time, over 1,000 protesters began to fill the streets of New York City.
According to historian Lillian Faderman, the Stonewall Riots were the shot heard round the world. The Stonewall Riots weren't the first gay uprisings in America. They were just the one that finally pushed organizers to finally try and bring LGBT people together. After the riots, important groups such as the Gay Liberation Front and the Gay Activist Alliance were formed. These organizations started to hold meetings in more public ways than before, demanding that they were heard, unlike before. On the 1-year anniversary of the Stonewall Riots, thousands of people marched from Christopher Park near the Stonewall Inn all the way to Central Park in support of gay rights. This march was the first LGBT pride parade in the United States and was the model for annual celebrations held on this important date throughout the world. The Stonewall Riots were the beginning of the modern gay movement.
In the 1980s, the gay rights movement, which began at the Stonewall Inn, was almost destroyed when a contagious disease called HIV/AIDS began to spread across America. AIDS was often viewed as a gay disease because it was associated with gay men. They were not the only ones that were affected, but the public blamed it on them, even though many people in America had it. Due to the gay activist organizations formed 10 years before AIDS hit the United States, the gay community surrounded those that had become infected instead of shaming them. The community demanded funding for fighting the disease and benefits to help those that already had it. Even though AIDS killed many gays, the way the LGBT community handled the adversity helped them continue to gain respect and rights in America.
In the almost 50 years since the Stonewall Riots, the LGBT community has overcome a lot of adversity and made tremendous progress. In 1993, President Clinton changed the military by enacting a policy called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was the beginning of a long process to allow LGBT people to serve their country. It was eventually changed in 2010 to allow all members of the LGBT community to serve without having to hide their sexual preference. In 2004, Massachusetts was the first state to recognize same-sex marriages. After many court hearings over the next decade, the United States Supreme Court finally legalized it throughout the country in 2015. The LGBT community has become so recognized worldwide that June was officially named LGBT Pride Month by several presidents. Today, the LGBT community has members in sports, politics, entertainment, and every other place in society. While there is still discrimination, they receive more protections today than ever before and are considered equal under the law.
Our journey is not complete until our gay brothers and sisters are treated like anyone else under the law. For if we are truly created equal, then surely the love we commit to one another must be equal as well.
To mark the important part the Stonewall Riots played in this revolution, in June 2016, President Barack Obama officially designated the Stonewall Inn a national monument. The stand that the people took that morning in 1969 sparked a great revolution that will never be forgotten.
I want things better for everybody, not just my community. And if they would accept my community just for who they are, it would be better for everybody.